everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share 2 books that we love and we think you should read. When, Brad?
Right now, Jen. I had to go back to my roots, back to the power move. The door's open. We're doing
this. I love it. We need to coordinate something. Our 3.5 viewers know that we don't ever, well, we very rarely do we plan a show. At some point we need to coordinate some kind of really cool movement or whatever, but not this week.
Right. Can we just practice 10 seconds? Give me a little knock. Like, how does that look? Okay, I'll watch when the show's over. I'm gonna go watch that and see if that has potential.
That's the gift right there. That's it right there. I love it. I love it.
That was fun.
What you been reading, my friend?
Oh, so much. I may have alluded to this last week that I got a shipment of picture books in, so I've just been like reveling in life and revisiting and things like that. So the one that I picked today was recommended by a good principal friend on the East Coast, Principal Garden, Liz Garden. And it is something that I think will inspire readers and writers. I'll get to that in a sec. I want to give a quick update on a book that I book talked a few weeks ago, Battle Dragons by Alexander London. So I've been following the last couple of days on Twitter. He was saying there's a website coming up where you can take a quiz and they'll tell you what dragon clan you're in.
Wow.
And I'm like, no way. I need to know. So it came out and I took mine today and it was so fun and I just felt good to know that. So the book was amazing as it was, and now to have that fun tool, I could see kids and teachers and readers just really getting into that. So I
love that stuff.
Kids,
I mean, what a fun way to just extend your love for a book. And also, like, it's an extension of community, because then other people who love that book, you can compare what dragon you are, et cetera, et cetera. I love it.
And the book was futuristic, where dragons are like, they're taxi cabs, they're battle dragons, there's so many cool things. So the survey is really graphic in a sense. Visual is a better word. Yeah. Like there'd be 4 outfits. What do you wear? And so I was trying to think, okay, would it be if I was in the book setting? What would I choose? Or in my ordinary normal life, And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting into this. I'm going to choose, if I were around dragons, who I would want to be and what I would wear. So that's how I answered everything. And it was so fun. Like, it makes me just want to go back into that world. But I'm getting off track. But I wanted people to know about that cool thing.
I love it.
The awesome picture book that I could see principals and teachers and anyone who loves readers and writers and reading and writing, just enjoying for themselves, but sharing to invite kids into that world more. I almost held it up backwards. There's a reason for that. It's Are You a Reader by April Jones Prince and Christine Davenier, I think. And the cool thing about this book, this is why I was confusing myself. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah.
So half of it is written one way. You are a reader. Half is written you are a writer. And the cool thing that happens smack dab in the middle of the book is it's a collision of the two. So whatever way you choose it,
fun.
The author and illustrator morph it together in a neat way. It's not just like 2 separate things. So that's my teaser for this. The reason why this book, why I gravitated to this is I love how when they're talking about Are You a Reader, they make reading such an inclusive thing. So it's not just something in books. They welcome people into it who maybe don't like books. And they count other types of reading, whether it's screen-based or I'm just looking around like newspaper, comics, the list goes on and on. It looks at it from so many different ways that I was picturing myself talking to kiddos either at my home or in our school, and it's like everyone's a reader, and like that's the message we want to send. That's how we want to live. And sometimes it's connecting the dots to help them believe and understand and see and value that. And this book I thought did it really well in a natural way. I just want to kind of share like one. I think it might be called a spread. You know all the library terms, but like for example, this is just partway through and actually just random, but spy a word that makes you scowl, trips you up with tricky vowels, stretch that word, sound it out, give your letter sounds a scout, So it has that kind of rhyming cadence, although it's not overbearing. And the cool thing is it just values little parts of being a reader. So it's not all about phonics. This just happened to be one aspect of it, basically. But it made me think of, I think you had Travis on the show as a guest host a while ago, and he's so
Travis
inspiring. He taught me all about like writing journals that are very graphic and collecting words and things like that. So I even thought of him as I was reading this. I could see kids collecting words. Anyway, I'm just starting to gush about this. Very, very solid book that invites everyone in. And I think anyone in a class in school could be, maybe even if they read it or heard a teacher read it thinking they weren't a reader or writer yet, they might be like, oh, dang, I guess I am one, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's you are a reader.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, I was thinking as you were talking about it, like, you know, the English teacher in me thinks about how a book like that for young kids, for, you know, even your pre-K, your kindergarten, your first graders, it just helps associate reading and writing with joy and with fun, and to have them, you know, think about what it looks like, you know, what it looks like to be sitting on the floor and writing, and or whatever, you know, like to just start imagining themselves in that position, to label and name themselves as reader or writer for young kids. And then as kids get older, now I haven't read the books, I'm just going by the section you read, but as kids get redder, get older, that phrase, give your words a scout, like the idea of, okay, so what are scouts? Let's think about what that is, you know, that you can unpack it in a more complex way as kids get older. I love books that lend themselves to this sort of expansive audience, to be used in just multiple ways as kids are developmentally ready for it. That is always real exciting to me.
You nailed that more than you've ever nailed anything. Like, I didn't even say it, even though before we connected, I'm like, Brad, make sure to talk about how this highlights the joy of reading. And I didn't say it, and you picked up on it. Like, there are scenes in here of kids reading in tents and just all different things. It really is about the joy of reading. So I'm so glad somehow you salvaged this thing again, Jen. Way to go.
Exactly. Where our brains are always connected, even though we don't plan it. But I think also just our hearts are rooted in that work of helping kids, you know, see reading and writing as joyful pursuits, and not just pursuits that we do for school or associated with some assessment or something like that. You know, we talk a lot in education about how we can't assume kids come to school having ever held a book before, you know, even knowing how to hold a book and how to turn the pages, even understanding that in English anyway, words are read from and written from left to right, you know, like those kinds of things. We can't assume that about every single kid, but we also can't assume that every child has been read to, that they see a book or reading as something that is shared with someone who is special to you, that you can create memories around reading and writing. You know, we can't assume all of those things. So any opportunity we have to reiterate that message on top of, alongside of any kind of academic learning that's going on about the reading and writing, I think it's important for us to remember to do that.
Yeah, and to build on what I heard you say, this book, really, the feeling I got from it was it's the opposite of telling a kid that doesn't count, that's not a book, that's not your level, whatever. It was the opposite. It's like, oh, you are a reader, because, you know, just finding all those awesome things where kids are naturally interacting with their environment and all different kinds of print and pictures and things. It's such an empowering, affirming message. So,
oh, I love that. And Brad, I'm really excited to transition into the book I read this week, because as you're talking, I'm hearing and seeing so many connections between these two books, even above and beyond the fact that they're both picture books. We both chose picture books this week, but I also see a lot of connections around identity and thinking about how things look different for different people, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong or strange. It just means that they're different. Everyone's different, unique and complex, you know, and the world is, and how important for us it is for us to understand that. So I want to jump right in and share my book, if that's okay. As school begins to start around, at least in the Western Hemisphere, you know, it's different on other parts of the world who are getting ready to end their school year. But as school begins in this part of the world where we both live, I often find myself thinking about first day reads, the books that you might read on the first day of school or in the first week of school. And so this is a new book that came out in 2021. And I don't know if you've heard of it before, Brad. Heck, you see this beautiful cover. It's called My First Day. I want to show the cover here. The author is Phung Quang, and the illustrator is Lien. I've been practicing those names to make sure I got them right. But it is unlike any other sort of first day book I've ever read before. And I want to start, because it is so different, I'm just showing these beautiful illustrations one more time. I'm going to actually start at the end. I want to read the author's note to you, or at least part of it, because I think that provides just such a good foundation about why this book is special. And then I'll show you a few of the pages, but let me get to this author's note. Okay, so a note from the author and illustrator, just a short paragraph. Children go to school the world over in all sorts of different ways. Some are even heroes on their journey. First days happen around the globe in deserts, cities, rural areas, and on water. For the people of the Mekong Delta, and this is in Vietnam, the water shapes their relationship with everything in their daily life. It's a roadway, it's a supermarket, a meeting place, and even the path to school. My first day is one story of the first day of school in our part of the world. And what is magical here then, as you begin to start this book, is you have our hero, this little guy right here, who is not only getting ready to go to school, you can see kind of as he's leaving his home, rather than getting on a school bus, he's going to get on a boat. And it's the very first time that he's going to travel to school alone. So not only is it the first day of school, but it's his first time without mom or dad taking him to school. He's going on his own. And so then, I'm not going to read it all, but what you see then is then you can see him sort of taking off into this world that looks very different from what the kids you and I would teach would see. And then you see him start to experience some fears around school, and the waves start to kick up. And as a reader, you begin to wonder, is he going to make it to school safely? The waves start to kick up, and then we can see that they're pushing him forward, etc. But what is really special as kids get older, because for younger kids, you can see this little guy going on a fantastical journey to school on the water. But as kids get a little bit older, you can see the metaphors in the language. So as he sort of is like being swallowed up by these trees, the language it's different when you're alone in the unfamiliar hallways. I hear the chatter of a classroom full of animals as I move by. So is he really talking about the physical hallway of the trees? Or is he talking about a classroom that can feel, a school that can feel scary and unfamiliar and almost like a jungle, etc. And so it goes on like that. So as I'm reading it, I'm getting super excited, because for little kids, this is just an adventure where a kid is, the hero of the story the first day of school, and you get the opportunity to show kids what it's like to go to school in another part of the world that might be very different. But the English teacher in me, the former 8th grade teacher, is like, whoa, look at all the metaphors and the analogies and the vocabulary in this book. I feel like there's some beautiful writing lessons to be had here. So I love this book so much. It reminds me of a lesson that I once watched in an elementary school, where the librarian and the Tectosa connected with kids in Vietnam over Flipgrid to answer the question, what it's like to go to school here. If you learned here, what would it be like? And I remember the kids at the school where I was, being floored by the idea that instead of taking a bus, those kids took boats to school. It was mind-blowing to them. And then hearing some of the things that they had in common, like a cafeteria where you ate lunch. Both the schools had a library. Those things were things we had in common, but the difference is kids were just completely astounded. So I think there's so many possibilities in this book. It's called My First Day. It is so, so beautiful, and I think you should read it right now.
That cover is captivating and just so freeing. The really cool, when you shared that first picture of the child stepping down towards the boat or on the stairs, to me, it toyed with almost looking like a dark floor, but it wasn't super apparent it was water. I know after further review, I could kind of see the waves and stuff. Yeah. That was cool to me because it had my brain kind of dancing in those two different worlds. And then I fully got immersed, but very cool.
And the whole book is sort of like that. It kind of reminds me of when you know, I'm going to talk in the language of like somebody who builds websites, you know, like if you have an image on a screen and then maybe you put a square over top of it and you work to make that square transparent, and then the other image will appear like underneath it. That's what this book reminds me of. It feels like there's the story on top of this kid going to school on the water, but then there's another story underneath it of what it's like to be experiencing a new place on your own for the first time. And that's universal, you know, like the idea of getting in a boat and going to school, that might be unique to certain parts of the world, but being nervous when you are meeting new people in a new place, that's universal. So really cool book. I love it.
I'm going to say something that will make all your show transitions look even better than they already look. I'm going to try a transition of my own. And boy,
I can't wait. I can't wait.
What you just shared about the school bus or the school boat reminds me a little bit of the Alex London Battle Dragon book, where they take dragons to school like, as the school bus. That's a real thing in the book. So if you want to see, I hope this wasn't too forced. If you want to see a past list of all our, oh my gosh, Jen, of all our show archives, past books, and then even this week's, go to bit.ly/read_this_now. Gosh, Jen, once again, I've just proven why, you know, you're carrying us here, and I thank you for that. I don't know how you do it each week. In my head, I gotta tell you, in my head, it sounded like, wow, that's pretty good. And then I said it, I'm like, oh my goodness, floundering.
That's okay. This is a safe place to experiment, right? And I'm sure our 3.5 viewers appreciate it too. So
we might be down to like 2.5 after that one. But anyway.
Happy reading, everyone.